Hey there, good evening. It is about 5 p.m. or so here in Mahabalipuram, India. Today is Sunday, March 8th, 2026. I spent the past week in the Middle East, stuck there when I had a layover for just one day in Doha, Qatar, and because of events, my flight in landed on the morning of February 28th. My flight out was in the evening. U.S. attacked Iran. Iran retaliated by attacking all of the Gulf countries, and my flight was canceled out. And so I won't go into everything that happened next in the past week. I've made lots of videos talking about that, but I wanted to discuss in depth something that I mentioned briefly in my past video. So this is going to be both a story telling what happened, as well as a cautionary tale, a warning for social media influencers in particular, but people in general sharing information online who are still in the Middle East, in these countries which have different kinds of governments than many of us have in the West. So we are accustomed to freedom of speech, freedom of expression to a certain extent, of course. That doesn't include sharing government secrets, classified information, etc. And that is kind of what this is about, although what exactly is considered misinformation in this case is up for debate, and people may very well and almost certainly are not aware of what could be potentially dangerous information to them to be sharing online. So let me get to the point, which is that I learned just, I think yesterday, that Qatar, the country, of course, in the Middle East on the Arabian-Persian Gulf, has arrested 194 people for what they refer to as spreading misinformation online, specifically related to the war that is ongoing. And I came very close to being one of the people who could have been arrested there. It is not clear at all in the articles what is considered misinformation that resulted in these 194 people of various nationalities being arrested. But that is undoubtedly a very, very bad situation to be in, to be accused of whatever they're accused of exactly, treason or, sharing government secrets or false information, which is what they are alleging. So right before I left Doha, Qatar, then I filmed a video. I tried to upload the video before leaving. As I discussed in previous videos, then I had this ride offer out of Doha, but I needed to get myself to the Saudi Arabian border on my own to meet somebody, and so I filmed this video based on information that I had received the previous night. Now, this information was actually very crucial in my ultimately deciding to get out, because it gave me the impetus to leave by land. And so somebody contacted me, sent me a message and said, yo, there is reports circulating that the interceptor missiles that are shooting down the Iranian missiles and drones that are attacking the Gulf states are running low, and they could run out within a few days. The reports were saying 4 days for the Qatar interceptor missiles to run out. So this was very alarming news, of course, when I got this message, but also good to know if it was true. So before doing anything, I searched online for news articles that were confirming this. And sure enough, I found lots of mainstream articles that were like a day or two old that were saying exactly this: interceptor missiles running low, Qatar 4 days supply left, etc. And so that was a wake-up call, because of course if those interceptor missiles run out and they don't have them anymore, then the missiles that Iran is shooting at its targets can get through, and there's going to be a lot more destruction. So that really got my wheel spinning as far as, okay, I really need to be thinking seriously about getting out of here. Now, as it turned out, the way to get out came shortly thereafter. Just, I don't know, 30 minutes, an hour after getting that message, then I got the email from Muhammad who said, hey, I'll come pick you up. And so that led into the series of events that transpired starting the next day, in which I left on my own and got to the border and ultimately got to Muscat, Oman, where I caught a flight to Chennai, India, and landed yesterday. So before departing the hotel there in Doha, I decided to make a video about this report because it seemed like very, very relevant information for people to have who were stuck there. If this was true, then people should know it. And so I filmed a video just talking for like 10 minutes or whatever, and then started it uploading while I was getting packed. But the Wi-Fi at the hotel wasn't very fast, and so that didn't happen. As it turns out, that might have saved my butt. That's speculating a lot, but still, that video almost certainly violates the law that people were getting arrested for. 194, that is a lot of people, and so that tells you it's kind of a broad definition of what is considered this misinformation that they are arresting people for. Now, on one hand, I can certainly understand the position of the government that they don't want people sharing information that's going to lead to panic and people fleeing, crowding the border, etc. On the other hand, if it's true, it's true. So really the ultimate critical factor here is that true? Is it true that the interceptor missiles were going to run out? Now, it is 3 or 4 days later now, and I haven't heard any information about that being the case, so that may very well be false information. So I'm not going to mention the name of the person who sent me that initial message about the interceptor missiles, because I don't want to reveal them unless they want to reveal themselves. So if you see this video, then feel free to post a comment down below explaining where you learned this from and to what extent you think this is likely correct to some extent, and I will pin your comment. But otherwise, I won't mention who this was. This was somebody who also has a YouTube channel focused on travel and adventure. But it's been 3 or 4 days and there hasn't been any further information about that, so maybe that was false. Or maybe they have a few days left, maybe they have a week left or 2 weeks left or whatever. But this was widely reported by mainstream news sources, and so I was simply passing on what had already been presumably vetted by news organizations and must have had some sort of credibility to it. Who knows about that? But it certainly didn't occur to me at the time that sharing something that was already being shared by news organizations could be something that could have gotten me imprisoned. But if I were to bet my money, I would guess that I am on a list by the Qatari government now of people who they would want to be asking some questions, because that video got quite a few views, more than 50,000 I think at the moment, and that is certainly information that, if it was indeed false, that is something that could impact the country and cause people to panic or whatever. And so I will not be going to Qatar anytime soon, or maybe never, even just for a layover, based on that, because it seems quite likely that I could be on a list, and I could have been one of the people who was in fact arrested there in Qatar. So what I was saying about my trying to upload the video and it not being successful because the Wi-Fi was too slow. So imagine if I had been able to upload the video, posted it, and then I got going heading for the border to exit Qatar. It would have been a little while after publicly publishing that video that I would have actually gotten going. And then I had an hour drive, and then I got to the border and there was some confusion, and it took some time before I figured out how to actually get through the border and actually get to the point at which I was exiting Qatar. So all of that could have been about 2 hours. And during that time, the video was public and being viewed. It is within the realm of possibility that this could have been picked up by the Qatari government. They certainly have people who are watching, you know, social media and seeing what people are saying. It is a possibility, perhaps unlikely in that short of a time span, but anyways, it could have occurred that the authorities contacted customs, whatever, the computer system, and said, nab this guy if he tries to leave, and I could have gotten to the border and they took me aside for questioning and possible arrest. But even if that hadn't been able to occur within the course of that short time period, if I hadn't gotten out that day and I'd posted the video, then almost certainly over the course of the next few days, if I had still been there in Qatar, then I could have heard from them. I filmed videos from my hotel room and showed the scene outside. I was making a point of not mentioning specifically the name of my hotel, and I actually cut out a few clips in which I'd shown the outside of the hotel, just sort of to be on the safe side. But most likely, just from what I did show, they could have figured out my hotel, and I could have had a knock on the door, or once I left, I could have been detained once leaving. So, point being, be very careful about what you are sharing. If you have content that has information that could possibly be interpreted as being this misinformation that they are targeting people for, then you might want to remove that. On YouTube, for example, you can unlist a video. So if I'd known about this at the time, I probably would have unlisted that video. Then it isn't viewable publicly. That might be too late, but anyways, you might want to take out anything that could have information about the war, the tactics, the missiles, etc., that could be interpreted by the Qatari authorities as falling into this misinformation category. And certainly be very, very careful about what you are saying going forward. So I just want to conclude by saying, as I mentioned in some previous videos, Qatar is one of my favorite countries, and Doha one of my favorite cities in the Middle East, and so nothing at all against Qatar. I understand that they are doing what they feel they need to do to keep their country and their citizens safe and to avoid any kind of public upheaval, but it is a different standard than the United States, where many of us are from in the West, Europe, Canada, Australia, in which you would not be arrested for something like that unless it was explicitly sharing classified information or whatever. But in that part of the world, things are different. So be careful, stay safe, and if you're there trying to get out, I just made a video with tips and information about that, so all the best in leaving and getting back home or continuing your travels safely. Have a good one.